How's it going, everyone? I hope you guys are having a wonderful day here today. Thank you guys for tuning back into another video. In today's video, we have a question from Mike T. He's from LA and he says, I'm planning to pack all my belongings into my car and drive up there. Did you drive up to Alaska when you made the move up there years ago? Any advice you can give me would be greatly appreciated. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much, Mike, and I hope you do come visit first before you move up here. So the question for us today is, should you drive up to Alaska or should you fly up to Alaska if you're planning to move up here? That is our question. So a little bit of background about myself here. I originally moved up to Alaska in 2002 with my family. We actually flew up to Alaska. I'm originally from Sacramento, California, so this was back in 2002. So that's for the record. And also, I have driven from California to Alaska, or I have driven from Alaska to downstates 3 times. So I've done it twice on a car/RV, and I've done it once on a motorcycle back in 2013. I rode my motorcycle from Anchorage, Alaska, back to San Francisco in 19 days. So that's my background as far as any experiencing driving the Alaskan, as far as what we call it. If you guys don't know what the Alaskan is, it's a short term for the Alaskan Highway. So that's the background of what I have for you guys today. So let's start off with either way is fine. Either way is fine depending on your scenario, what your situation may be, whether you want to fly up or drive. So let's talk about flying up first. So if you are planning to come up to Alaska and let's say you have a job or you're in a rush and you just want to get up here ASAP, flying is definitely the fastest way to do it. Of course, it's a bit cheaper. You can get right up here. I think flights right now are anywhere from, I'm sure one-way tickets anywhere from $600 to less than $1,000. But the thing about flying is that you're very limited on bringing all your personal belongings depending on what you have. But if you're those kind of person that don't have too much and maybe a 2 suitcase and your backpack, flying is definitely fine for you. Like I said, you can save time, save money, and just get up to Alaska and go on with your life. And this is for the people that, let's say, have a job ready, or let's say you might have kids that might be hard for you to travel on the road, etc., etc. So it all depends on what your scenario is. So that's flying for you in Alaska. So yes, I do recommend flying if you're in a rush to get up here, or let's say you have a job set up already and you need to get up here ASAP. You can definitely do that. And then there's also tons of company where you can hire them to ship all your belongings, or if you need them to ship your vehicle. Now, me personally, I have never shipped a vehicle from downstate up to Alaska, but from what I heard from friends and family, I know that if you can get your vehicle to Seattle or Tacoma, Washington, most of the time from Washington, Seattle, from there to Anchorage can run you anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000, and that's for like a regular, anything up to like a full-size truck is around that length. Now you gotta watch out because some of these towing company or some of these auto transportation company, some of them also don't allow you to pack anything into your vehicle. So let's say if you have a truck, well, you can't load up the bed of your truck with your furnitures, your sofa, all your stuff. So sometime you gotta make sure you choose the right auto transport company and ask them these questions, because most of the time they'll just want you to have your vehicle with less than a quarter tank, and that's pretty much it. They don't want you to load it up with anything in that vehicle. So make sure if you do go that route, expect anywhere from maybe a $2,000 to $2,500 budget to get your car transported up to Alaska. Or if you want to, you can always seal your car downstate from where you're moving from and then just buy a car when you get up here. But again, that's another situation you just have to go through. So it really depends on what you want to do. Now let's go ahead and discuss about driving up, which is what I would do if I was still young back then, or if I had the choice back then. So if you're the person that don't have a time limit and you have the vehicle and you have the ability to drive and take your time, I definitely recommend you guys drive up. And let's just take, for example, let's say you and a spouse or you and a partner is coming up and you guys have a truck. Well, the nice thing is that you can rent a U-Haul trailer, a U-Haul enclosed trailer, and you can carry more stuff. So depending if you have furnitures or personal belongings, whatever the case may be, you can always go with that route, driving your vehicle and hauling something. Or if you don't have a truck, you can just drive your regular car, a sedan, a van, whatever the case may be. But driving to Alaska is also another experience, just alone by itself. If you drive up to Alaska, you're gonna experience the beautifulness of Canada, and just the beautifulness of driving up to Alaska, and you're gonna see so much wildlife coming up, especially if you're doing this drive in the summertime, which is what I would recommend. I do recommend you guys do that if you can go that route. If you have a lot of kids, let's say you have a lot of kids from 1 or under 6-year-old, 8-10-year-olds that might get car sick or don't like driving, then that's something else you might have to consider flying instead. Now keep in mind that when you drive up to Alaska, you are crossing the Canada border, so you got to make sure you do have your passport, and you do got to make sure that you're able to cross into Canada border. A lot of people, or I know one thing that Canada won't let you do is that if you're a felony, or if you're a felon, or if you have like a DUI on your background or anything like that, they will not let you cross the border, even if you're not the one driving. So let's say you have a partner who has a clean record, but let's say you have a bad record or something like that along your end. Your partner might be able to cross, but then when you get to the border, they check your stuff and pull up your record. You're not gonna be able to cross. So I highly recommend you guys do get your passport, and also call the Canadian borders to ask them any particular question and make sure that you're clear to cross the border. Because if you get to the border and you can't cross, you're basically wasting your time driving up there, depending on where you're coming from. But let's say if everything goes well and you drive up to Alaska, I can guarantee you that you're gonna enjoy this beautiful trip. The highway is amazing. There's a lot of things to do along the way, and you can explore you can explore so much coming up to Alaska. And I also recommend you guys do this during the summertime. If you guys do this during the summertime, let's say from late April to almost August, you're gonna have so much daylight that you can drive as long as you want. Let's say you have a partner, a brother, a mom, a dad, whoever the case. Let's say if you have 2 drivers on board, you guys can literally drive non-stop if you guys wanted to, just by switching shift. And if you do something like that, honestly, you can get up to Alaska within less than 5 days if you were just on like the rush. But if you want to take your time, expect at least maybe a week and a half if you're planning to do multiple stops here and there and check out a lot of touristy place along this highway. Now, like I said, I've done the drive at least 2 times, and I also driven it 1 time on a motorcycle, and it's amazing. The road has improved from the past few years, so it's not as bad as what people used to say. If you're driving a big RV, yeah, you have to take it a little bit slower at some section of the highway because there are a lot more potholes, a lot more frost heave. The other thing I want to talk about is that driving in the wintertime can be very dangerous because most likely you haven't been to Alaska. So if this is your first time coming to Alaska and you plan to drive this in the wintertime, it can be very dangerous because most likely you might be new to driving in the snow. So I highly recommend you avoid driving in the wintertime if you can, just because it's darker, you'll have less daylight to travel, you'll have to watch out for wildlife, and then you have to watch out for weather conditions, road conditions, and such and such. Let's say you have to pull over for the night and sleep. Well, now you have to fight the weather, make sure your car's turned on, make sure you stay warm, etc., etc. So I highly recommend, if you do come to Alaska or you do plan to make the drive, definitely plan for the early spring to summertime and just enjoy it. You'll have much more better time enjoying it in the summertime because you can do so much thing versus in the wintertime, because if you come up in the wintertime, you're most likely just going to be driving. Now, there is one benefit to driving in the wintertime, and that is that I have heard that the wintertime the roads are a little bit better if the road is nicely packed with the snow. So that's one thing that's a plus, but it is bad if you run into a snowstorm, so be careful. Now let's talk about some tips about driving to Alaska. So first and foremost, let's think about the car that you want to get. So if you don't have a car, I do notice that when I was down in the lower 48 states, I noticed that vehicles were way much cheaper down there versus Alaska. So if you don't have a car, you can consider buying a car down there, even if you don't like it, and use that as your trip. And once you bring it up to Alaska, well, guess what? You can sell that vehicle, that car, that truck, and either make your money back or even profit a little bit more, because for some reason vehicles just cost less down there, and when you bring them back up to Alaska, I guess they just have a little bit more value because it's Alaska. Maybe it's a special car, so make sure you choose something that's very popular, like let's say something a little bit newer, like a Chevy 4 or something along the line that's very generic and very popular to the general customers. So that's something to consider. If you don't have a vehicle, you can always buy one down there and then bring it up and then sell it, and then you can choose something else or buy something else if you want to do that route. The other thing that I want to recommend for driving is what to bring, how to prepare yourself, and what to do for your vehicle. Most likely, you definitely want your vehicle to be in top-notch, fresh oil change, a good set of tires, and also have a good spare. Now, I'm not talking about the cheap spare tire that most cars come with. I'm talking about an actual full-size spare, and also some tools to change out that tire if you do have a flat tire or anything along that case. And also, make sure to bring a patch kit to plug in the tire if you do run over a nail or whatever the case may be. Now, I also recommend gas is plentiful on this road, this Alaskan highway, Canada. When I was driving and when I was riding my motorcycle through the border or from Alaska to downstate, I never had any issue with gas, so mostly you should be fine. But if you want to be on the safe side, you can always bring an extra 10 gallon of petrol just in case you do run out. But for the most part, the gas station stretch is pretty good, especially in the summertime when things are pretty much open. If you're coming up in the wintertime, then yes, some place in the Canada might be closed, like the smaller towns, so that's where gas might be an issue, but that's just something to consider. The other thing I also want to recommend is definitely bring a spare key, because when I was riding my motorcycle through Canada and when I was coming back up to Alaska, halfway through in Canada, when I was filling up my gas tank for my motorcycle, I actually broke my motorcycle key while closing my gas tank. And if I didn't have a spare key with me, I would have been stuck there until somebody mailed me a key. So definitely recommend you guys bring at least 2 spare keys for your vehicle, whether that's the ignition key or the door key, and either hide a set of them under the vehicle or outside of the vehicle, or just know where to have a backup key in case you do lose your key, because you do not want to be driving through Canada, sleeping through the night, and all of a sudden you wake up and found out that you lost your key or it's been misplaced. So make sure you have a spare key. So all in all, there is no right or wrong way to move up to Alaska. Whether you choose to drive up or fly up, it all depends on your scenario, your lifestyle, and also your budgeting. I hope you guys find this video informative, and if you guys have more questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And until next time, I'll see you guys on the road. Bye bye.